Hi everyone, Jason here from the Historical Society. Here with Steve from Winchester Construction, and Steve and his crew has been helping us with our window project for many months now. And Steve, can you introduce yourself and just tell everybody what your role is with the company, and kind of we'll get into the project here.
Sure. My name's Steve Misek. I'm with Winchester Construction, and I manage the small projects and service division. And our larger company builds big new custom homes, and we do everything that comes back behind that. We do service, maintenance, and small projects. And we were introduced to this project by one of our prior customers, who is a board member, I think, of the Historic Society. And we've been asked to refurbish all the windows in this house. And to do that, it's really an interesting process because the building is obviously a couple hundred years old, and everything is settled. Nothing's perfectly straight or level. And so, including the brick on the outside, the window openings, the sashes themselves, the glass is very old glass, which is very fragile. So what we're doing is, as part of the process, the first thing we do is we come in and we remove the existing sashes, and then we place in just a weather protection so that we can keep the sashes out of the openings until we're ready to put them back in. When we take the sashes back to our shop, we find that a lot of these mutton bars are broken or water damaged, and even some of the edges of the sashes have been water damaged. So we repair all those. We replace any pieces that really can't be repaired, which is not too many of them, but some of them. And the way these things are constructed has been really interesting because everything is hand worked, handmade. They're mortise and tenon frames, and even the mutton bars are mortise and tenon into the frames, which is really, really interesting. It makes for a little bit more difficult repair, but historically that's the way that those were done. So what we do is we after we get the sashes repaired, then we bring them out back to the site where this is where we are now, and we dry fit them so that when they go back in the openings, because the openings aren't square and level, we dry fit them and make sure we don't have to cut these at all before we put the glass back in and paint them. And so that's what we're doing today. We'll get all these dry fit in here, make any cuts that we have to these, take them back to our shop where we put the glass in, put the glazing in. It takes a few weeks for that glazing to really set up so that you can paint it. And so we are shooting for a May event here, and our deadline is going to be early May to get all these finished. And we have 5 windows that we're doing at this point. We did 4 windows last year, and I think they turned out pretty well. It's been a really enjoyable project for everybody involved, just because we don't always get to work in it and work with and see historical buildings and materials and methods of construction. So it's really been fun for everybody involved, I believe, including myself.
Steve, did you come across anything in any of the windows in the building that kind of gave you an insider's peek at what the carpenters were doing, or any special markings or anything like that kind of made you guys just kind of think about things a little differently? Or
it gave us some insight. We did find one particular thing that gave us some insight to how people were doing things and keeping track of what window went in what opening, because they would make these windows here on site. They didn't make them at a factory somewhere and have them shipped to the site. They would make them on site, and there would be probably a carpenter on site who would, his job was to make all the parts of the windows, put them all together. And so what we found, I don't think there's any on this particular sash, but we found Roman numerals on different sashes that went to different windows. And we preserved those anywhere where we found them that we could preserve them. But it tells you that 200 years ago or 250 years ago, we're still using the same basic method, because we take all these sashes out, we number them, we label them. We have little dyed taps, and we tap into them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's the way we did it. We labeled all these windows 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in this room. And so the carpenters, 250 years ago did the same thing, but they just scratched in, carved in Roman numerals into the sashes to be able to keep that organized.
And another question people always ask us about is the glass. Now you guys went through some special hoops, right, to get the glass that we needed for the windows. And there's tracking down the companies that would make it the proper way. And can you talk a little bit about that, the glass?
Sure. So this glass that was in these existing windows was very thin and therefore very fragile. And it's imperfect glass, so it's not a perfectly clean, clear piece of glass that you would get in today's windows. So there's different imperfections in each piece of glass, and to be able to find a thin piece of glass that would fit in these sashes, because this frame, the sash thickness is very, very thin. And so the space we have to put in glass and the glazing that holds it in place is therefore very thin. So we can't get a thick piece of glass. And there's only one place out of many that we looked that we could find that had historic glass that had those imperfections and would also make it in that very thin material, which is 2 millimeters, which is very, very thin for a piece of glass. Very fragile, so we've got it protected at our shop now, bundled up. But there's one place that we found, and it's Benheim Glass, and they make a product called light restoration glass, which has all those imperfections. No two pieces of glass are the same, and I'm not sure if it's handmade or not, but it's when you put it in the sashes, you can't really distinguish it from the existing glass, which is really, really, I think, part of the goal here for this project.
And of course, if we have intact pieces, we're keeping those.
We are.
Yeah.
So out of these 5 windows, we were able to preserve about half of the pieces of glass. And the same with the first 4 that we did, we were able to preserve about half of the pieces of glass. And some of that, we've ordered a little bit of extra glass for each, because just handling this glass, it's so fragile that if you try to clean it too hard, it breaks.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for your time. I know we have a lot of listeners that will appreciate the more technical story behind putting these windows in. It's not just, a couple weeks goes by and we're putting new windows in. It's quite a process. And Winchester has been amazing. You guys has just been super to work with, and we can't thank you enough. And we can't wait for everyone to see the new windows in the Shellman Bedroom here. So thanks again, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye.